I was sitting at the dinner table when my mom said the words that would change everything. "You're not really part of this family." I was 17 years old, and in that moment, my entire world shattered. This is the story of how I discovered a truth that had been hidden from me my entire life, and how it led me down a path I never could have imagined. My name is Alex, and for the first 17 years of my life, I thought I had it all figured out. I lived in a comfortable suburban home with my parents, Margaret and David, and my younger sister, Emma. We were the picture-perfect family, or so I thought. My dad was a successful lawyer, always dressed in sharp suits and carrying his leather briefcase. My mom was a teacher at the local elementary school, known for her warmth and kindness. Emma was the golden child, 3 years younger than me, with perfect grades and a room full of trophies from her gymnastics competitions. And then there was me. I was the average kid, nothing spectacular but nothing terrible either. I played guitar in a garage band with my friends, got mostly B's in school, and spent my weekends working part-time at the local bookstore. I loved reading, especially fantasy novels where the ordinary person discovers they're actually extraordinary. Looking back now, I realize how ironic that was. Our family had traditions. Every Sunday, we'd have breakfast together, pancakes with real maple syrup. Every summer, we'd drive up to Lake Tahoe for 2 weeks. Every Christmas, we'd decorate the tree together while drinking hot chocolate and listening to my dad's collection of vintage holiday records. I never questioned any of it. Why would I? This was my family. This was my life. But there were small things, moments that didn't quite add up, like how I had curly dark hair while everyone else had straight blonde hair. How I was tall and lanky while my parents were both on the shorter side. How I loved art and music while everyone else in the family was focused on academics and sports. My mom would always say, "You got those genes from your great-uncle Robert," whenever someone commented on how different I looked. I accepted it without question. After all, genetics are weird, right? Chapter 2 in the dinner, that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in October, just another ordinary evening. I came home from school to find my mom cooking her famous lasagna. The house smelled like garlic and tomato sauce, the same comforting smell I'd grown up with. Emma was at gymnastics practice, so it was just the 3 of us for dinner. I remember thinking it was nice to have a quiet meal for once. Emma's constant chatter about her competitions could get exhausting. We sat down at the table, my dad at the head, my mom to his right, and me across from her. We said grace, the same prayer we'd said 1,000 times before. Everything seemed normal. My dad cleared his throat. "Alex, we need to talk to you about something." I looked up from my plate, a forkful of lasagna halfway to my mouth. The tone in his voice was strange, formal. Like he was addressing a client rather than his son. "We've been discussing this for a while," my mom added, not meeting my eyes. "We think you're old enough now to understand." My heart started beating faster. Were they getting divorced? Was someone sick? 1,000 scenarios ran through my mind, but I never could have guessed what came next. "You're adopted," my dad said, just like that. 3 words, delivered with all the emotion of someone reading a grocery list. The room started spinning. I set down my fork carefully, trying to process what I'd just heard. What? It was all I could manage. My mom finally looked at me, and there was something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not quite pity, not quite regret. Something colder. "Why adopted you when you were 3 days old," she explained. "We thought it would be easier if you never knew. But with you turning 18 soon and college applications coming up, there are legal matters we need to address." "Legal matters," I repeated, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "Your original birth certificate, medical history, that sort of thing," my dad said, pushing a manila folder across the table toward me. "It's all in here." I stared at the folder like it was a bomb. My entire identity reduced to paperwork. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I asked, and I could hear my voice shaking. My parents exchanged a look. "We thought it would be confusing for you," my mom said. "We wanted you to feel like you belonged." That's when she said it, the words that would echo in my mind for months to come. "But the truth is, Alex, you're not really part of this family. Not in the way Emma is." She's our biological daughter, and there's a bond there that's just different. We wanted to be honest with you about that." I sat there, frozen. Not part of the family. The family I'd lived with for 17 years. The only family I'd ever known. "That's why we've decided," my dad continued, his voice matter of fact, "that when you turn 18, it would be best if you started making your own way. We'll help you with the first semester of college if you get into a state school, but after that, you'll need to be independent." "You're kicking me out?" The words came out as a whisper. "We're encouraging you to be self-sufficient," my mom corrected. "Emma will need our resources for her education and her future. We have to prioritize our biological child. I'm sure you understand." I didn't understand. I couldn't understand. These people who I'd called mom and dad for 17 years were telling me I wasn't real family. That I didn't deserve the same love, the same support, the same future as their real daughter. I took the manila folder to my room and locked the door. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. A birth certificate with a different name, Baby Boy Martinez. Born to someone named Sofia Martinez at County General Hospital. A hospital bracelet, tiny and faded. A single photograph of a young woman with dark curly hair like mine holding a newborn baby. She looked tired but happy. Her eyes full of love. There was also a letter, sealed in an envelope with my name written on it in unfamiliar handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. "To my son," it began. "I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need you to know that giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was 19 years old, alone, and scared. Your father left when he found out I was pregnant, and I had no family support. I wanted to keep you so badly, but I couldn't give you the life you deserved." I had to stop reading. Tears were blurring the words on the page. "I chose the Andersons because they seemed like good people." The letter continued. "They promised they would love you and give you opportunities I never could. I hope they kept that promise. I hope you had a happy childhood. I hope you never felt the absence of me, because every day, I felt the absence of you." The letter went on, my birth mother describing her hopes for me, her regrets, her love. She'd been a student, studying art history. She loved painting and classical music. She'd been planning to name me Gabriel, after her favorite poet. At the bottom of the letter was an address in Los Angeles and a phone number. "If you ever want to find me," she wrote, "I'll be waiting. Love always, Sophia." I stayed in my room all night, reading and rereading that letter, staring at the photograph of the woman who gave birth to me. She had my eyes, my nose, my smile. Looking at her felt like looking in a mirror, but also like looking at a stranger. Chapter 40. The next few weeks, the atmosphere in the house changed after that dinner. It was like a mask had been removed, and I could finally see the truth that had always been there. My mom stopped asking about my day. My dad stopped inviting me to watch football on Sundays. Emma, who apparently had known about my adoption for years, became openly dismissive. "Why are you still here?" she asked me one morning when I was making breakfast. "Didn't they tell you to leave?" "I'm still 17, I said quietly. "I have nowhere to go," she shrugged. "Not my problem." I started spending more time at the bookstore where I worked. My boss, Mr. Chen, was a kind older man who noticed something was wrong. "Trouble at home?" he asked one day. I told him everything. About the adoption, about being told I wasn't real family, about being expected to leave when I turned 18 in 3 months. Mr. Chen listened without interrupting, his face growing more troubled as the story went on. "That's not right," he said finally. "Adoption isn't conditional love. When they took you in, they made a commitment. A real family doesn't abandon a child because they're not biologically related." His words meant more to me than he could have known. For the first time since that dinner, someone validated what I was feeling. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I showed him the letter from Sophia, the one I'd been carrying in my pocket every day like a talisman. "I think I need to find her," I said. "I need to know where I came from." Mr. Chen nodded. "I think that's a good idea. Everyone deserves to know their story." I used the bookstore computer to search for Sofia Martinez in Los Angeles. The address in the letter was from 17 years ago, so I didn't have high hopes. But I had to try. I found several Sofia Martinez's on social media, but only one matched the age and looked like the woman in the photograph, just older. She was an art teacher at a high school in East LA, and her profile was filled with pictures of paintings, her students' artwork, and a small dog named Picasso. She looked happy. And she looked like me. I stared at her profile for hours, trying to work up the courage to reach out. What would I even say? Hi, you gave me up for adoption 17 years ago, and now the people you gave me to don't want me anymore, so I thought I'd look you up. Finally, I sent a simple message. My name is Alex Anderson. I was born on March 15th at County General Hospital. I think you might be my birth mother. I'd really like to talk to you if you're willing. I hit send before I could change my mind. For 3 days I checked my messages constantly. Nothing. Then, on the 4th day, I got a response. Gabriel. That single word. The name she would have given me made me start crying. I called in sick to school and went to the park, sitting on a bench while I typed out my response. We messaged back and forth for hours. She told me about her life, how she'd thought about me every single day, how she'd gone to college and become a teacher, how she'd never married or had other children because she could never let go of the guilt of giving me up. I want to meet you, she wrote. If you want to meet me, but only if you're ready. I don't want to disrupt your life. I laughed at that, a bitter sound. My life is already disrupted. I typed back, and then I told her everything about the dinner, about being told I wasn't real family. Her response came quickly. You get on a bus to LA this weekend. I'm going to give you a hug 17 years overdue. I told the Andersons I was spending the weekend at my friend Jake's house. They didn't question it. They barely looked up from their dinner when I told them. The bus ride to Los Angeles took 6 hours. I spent the entire time nervous, rehearsing what I would say, imagining what she would be like in person. Sofia had given me the address of a coffee shop near her apartment. I arrived early and sat by the window, watching every person who walked by, and then I saw her. She looked exactly like her pictures, but somehow more real. She was wearing a paint-stained denim jacket and had her dark curly hair pulled back in a messy bun. She walked with confidence, but I could see her hands shaking as she pushed open the door to the coffee shop. Our eyes met, and she stopped walking. Her hand went to her mouth, and tears started streaming down her face. Gabriel, she whispered, even though I was too far away to hear it. I could just read it on her lips. I stood up, and she crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, pulling me into a hug that felt like coming home. We stood there for what felt like hours, both of us crying, both of us holding on like we'd never let go. When we finally sat down, we couldn't stop staring at each other. You're so tall, she said, laughing through her tears. And so handsome. You look just like my father. He passed away before you were born, but he would have loved you so much. We talked for hours. She told me about my family, my heritage. I was half Mexican, half Italian. My grandfather had been a muralist in Mexico City. My grandmother had been a singer. I had cousins, aunts, uncles, an entire family tree I'd never known about. Why did you give me up? I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind. She took a deep breath. I was 19, Alex. I was in college, working 2 jobs, living in a tiny studio apartment. Your father, he left when I told him I was pregnant. My parents had passed away, and I had no one. I wanted to keep you so badly, but I couldn't even afford to feed myself properly, let alone a baby. She wiped her eyes. The adoption agency found the Andersons. They were well off, educated, married. They seemed perfect. They promised they would give you everything I couldn't, that they would love you like their own. I thought I was doing the right thing. It wasn't your fault, I said. You did what you thought was best. But it wasn't enough, she said bitterly. They didn't love you like their own. They betrayed both of us, doll. I stayed in LA for the whole weekend. Sofia showed me her apartment, a cozy one, bedroom filled with paintings and books and plants. She introduced me to her dog, Picasso, who immediately decided I was his new best friend. We cooked dinner together, and she taught me how to make her mother's recipe for pozole. We looked through old photo albums, and she told me stories about my grandparents, About her childhood, about the art history degree she'd finished while working 3 jobs. "I never stopped thinking about you," she said. "I kept that letter with me for 3 years before I finally put it in your adoption file. I wanted you to know that I loved you. That I didn't abandon you because I didn't want you." On Sunday night, as I was getting ready to take the bus back, she asked me the question I'd been dreading. "What are you going to do when you turn 18? I told her about the Andersons' plan, about being cut off financially, about being expected to be independent. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You could stay here with me." I looked up at her, hardly daring to hope. "I know it's not ideal," she continued quickly. "The apartment is small, and I'm not wealthy. But you'd have a home. You'd have family, real family. And I would support you through college, help you however I can." "Why would you do that?" I asked. "You don't even know me. I know you're my son," she said simply. "That's all I need to know. I gave you up once because I thought it was best for you. I'm not making that mistake again." I spent the entire bus ride back thinking about her offer. Could I really leave everything I'd known? Move to a new city, start over with a virtual stranger who happened to be my birth mother. But then I thought about what I'd be leaving behind. A family that had told me I wasn't really one of them. Parents who were counting down the days until I turned 18 so they could wash their hands of me. A sister who barely acknowledged my existence. What was I really losing? When I got back to the Andersons' house, I found them in the living room with Emma, looking at college brochures. "We're planning Emma's future," my mom said without looking up. "She's been accepted to 3 Ivy League schools." "That's great," I said flatly. My dad glanced at me. "How was Jake's house?" "Fine," I lied. "Actually, I need to talk to you all about something." They looked up, mildly interested. "I found my birth mother," I said. "I went to Los Angeles this weekend and met her." The room went silent. My mom's face went pale. "You had no right," she said, her voice shaking. "We're your legal parents. You should have asked our permission." "Permission to meet my own mother?" I asked incredulously. "The mother you told me about in a manila folder. The mother I only know about because you needed to handle legal matters." "Watch your tone," my dad warned. "No," I said, and it felt liberating. I've spent 17 years being the grateful adopted son, never complaining, never questioning. "But you know what? You're right. I'm not part of this family. I never was." Emma's eyes widened. She'd never heard me talk back before. "When I turn 18 in 2 months, I'm moving to Los Angeles to live with Sophia. My real mother. The one who actually wanted me." "You're making a huge mistake," my mom said. "That woman gave you up. She didn't want the responsibility. We took you in, raised you, gave you everything. You gave me a roof over my head and food on the table," I said. "But you never gave me love. Not real love. Not the unconditional kind that families are supposed to have. Sophia gave me up because she was 19 and alone and scared, because she wanted me to have a better life. You're giving me up because I'm not biologically yours. There's a difference." "We're not giving you up," my dad said. "We're teaching you independence." "Right," I said sarcastically. "That's why Emma gets her college paid for and I get cut off. That's why she's family and I'm not. Don't dress it up as a life lesson. At least have the courage to admit the truth." I turned and walked toward my room. "If you leave," my mom called after me, "don't expect to come back. This door will be closed to you." I stopped and looked back at them, all 3 of them sitting together on the couch. A perfect little family unit that I'd never really been part of. "Good," I said. "I'll save you the trouble of pretending to care." The last 2 months in that house were the longest of my life. I moved through it like a ghost, there but not really present. The Andersons and I barely spoke. Emma treated me like I was invisible. I spent most of my time at the bookstore or at Jake's house. I'd told Jake everything, and his response had been exactly what I needed. "They're insane," he said. "You're better off without them. And hey, LA, that's awesome. You can start fresh. Be whoever you want to be." Mr. Chen helped me pack up the books I'd accumulated over the years. "You're always welcome back here if things don't work out," he said. "But I have a feeling they will." Sophia and I talked on the phone every night. She was making plans, clearing out her storage closet to make room for my things, researching schools in the area, helping me fill out financial aid forms. "I want you to know," she said one night, "I don't expect you to call me Mom. I know I haven't earned that. I just want to be here for you, whatever that looks like." "Sophia," I said, "you've been more of a mother to me in 2 months than Margaret was in 17 years. I think you've earned it." I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. On my 18th birthday, there was no party, no celebration. Margaret left a card on the kitchen counter with a check for $2,000 and a note that said, "For your first semester, use it wisely." I took the money. I wasn't too proud for that. I'd earned it, living in that house for 18 years, being the consolation prize child while they waited for their real daughter. The day I left, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. It wasn't much. I realized, looking around my room, that I'd never really made it my own. No posters on the walls, no personal touches. It was like I'd always known, on some level, that I didn't belong. Jake helped me load everything into his car to drive me to the bus station. The Andersons weren't home. They'd left that morning for one of Emma's gymnastics competitions, and I was glad. I didn't want a goodbye scene, but as I was walking out the door one last time, I saw Emma standing in the hallway. "So you're really leaving?" she said. "Yeah?" I replied. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "For what it's worth, I think they're wrong. About the family thing." I looked at her, surprised. It was the first kind thing she'd said to me in months. "You were always a better brother than I deserved," she continued. "I'm sorry I never stood up for you." "It's okay," I said, and I meant it. She was just a kid, caught in the middle of her parents' twisted logic. "Good luck in LA," she said, and then she went back to her room. The bus ride to Los Angeles felt different this time. I wasn't nervous or scared. I was hopeful. Sophia was waiting for me at the bus station, and when I saw her, I realized something. I looked like her. I had her smile, her mannerisms, her way of standing with one hip cocked to the side. For the first time in my life, I saw myself reflected in my family. "Welcome home, Gabriel," she said, using the name she'd wanted to give me. "I think I prefer Alex," I said. "It's who I've been for 18 years. But maybe Gabriel can be my middle name, a bridge between who I was and who I'm becoming." She smiled. "Alex Gabriel Martinez." "I like it, Martinez." I asked. "If you want it," she said. "You don't have to take my name. But it's there if you want to reclaim it." "I want it," I said without hesitation. Life in LA was nothing like the life I'd left behind. Sophia's apartment was small and cluttered, a stark contrast to the Andersons' pristine suburban home. But it was filled with warmth and laughter and the smell of home, cooked Mexican food. I enrolled in community college, studying business and creative writing. Sophia introduced me to her colleagues, her friends, people who welcomed me without question. I met my extended family, cousins I'd never known existed. An aunt who cried when she saw how much I looked like my grandfather. I got a job at an art supply store near Sophia's school. The pay wasn't great, but I loved being surrounded by creativity, by people who saw the world in colors and shapes. Sophia and I developed our own traditions. Sunday breakfast became chilaquiles instead of pancakes. We went to art museums instead of Lake Tahoe. We spent Christmas Eve at midnight mass with my aunt's family, then came home to open presents and drink Mexican hot chocolate. It wasn't perfect. We argued sometimes about stupid things like whose turn it was to do dishes or whether to watch a documentary or a comedy. But we always worked it out, always talked through it. "This is what family does," Sophia said after one particularly heated argument about my college plans. "We disagree, we get frustrated, but we don't give up on each other. Ever." I started therapy to work through the trauma of being rejected by the Andersons. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, helped me understand that their inability to love me unconditionally was their failure, not mine. "You are worthy of love," she told me. "Not because of your biology, not because of what you can give someone, but because you exist." Full stop. It took time, but I started to believe it. A year and a half after I moved to LA, I was working at the art supply store when I heard a familiar voice. "Alex." I turned around and saw Margaret Anderson standing in the aisle, looking older and tired. My heart started racing. "What are you doing here?" "I'm in LA for a conference," she said. "I saw you through the window and I needed to talk to you." "I have nothing to say to you," I said, turning back to the shelf I was stocking. "Please," she said. "Just 5 minutes, da." Against my better judgment, I told my manager I was taking my break and walked outside with Margaret. We sat on a bench in the parking lot, an awkward distance between us. "How have you been?" she asked. "Good," I said shortly. "How's Emma?" "She's struggling," Margaret admitted. "She's at Princeton, but she's having a hard time adjusting. She says the pressure is too much." I felt a small, petty satisfaction at that, then immediately felt guilty. "David and I have been going to counseling," Margaret continued. "Our therapist asked us to examine why we treated you the way we did. It brought up a lot of painful things." "Good," I said. "You should feel pain for what you did." "You're right," she said, and I looked at her in surprise. "We were wrong. I was wrong. I let my own insecurities about fertility and biological connection poison what should have been a beautiful relationship with you." She took a shaky breath. "We tried for years to have a baby before we adopted you. When Emma came along unexpectedly, I let that biological bond overshadow everything else. I convinced myself that the connection was different, that it justified treating you differently. It doesn't," I said flatly. "I know," she said. "I know that now. Our therapist made me realize that I failed you. That we failed you. And I'm so sorry." I sat there, staring at this woman who had raised me for 17 years, who had taught me to tie my shoes and ride a bike and do long division, who had then told me I wasn't real family. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing," she said. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see now how badly I hurt you, and I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved parents who loved you unconditionally, and we failed to be those parents." "Yes, you did," I said. "Are you happy here?" she asked, looking at me carefully. "With Sophia? Happier than I ever was in your house," I said honestly. "She's teaching me what real family looks like. What unconditional love actually means." Margaret flinched but nodded. "Good. That's good, you deserve that." We sat in silence for a moment. "Emma wants to talk to you," Margaret said. "She's been asking about you, wondering how you are. She says she misses you." "She has my number," I said. "She's always had my number. If she wanted to reach out, she could have." "She's afraid you hate her." "I don't hate her," I said, and I realized it was true. "I don't hate any of you. I just don't need you in my life anymore. I've built a new family, a real family, with people who actually want me." Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. But if you ever change your mind, the door is open now. It's too late, I know, but it's open." She stood up, hesitated, then reached out like she was going to hug me. I stepped back. "Goodbye, Margaret," I said. She nodded, accepting the boundary. "Goodbye, Alex. I hope you have a wonderful life." I watched her walk away and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing. Just a quiet relief that this chapter was finally, truly closed. I told Sophia about the encounter that night over dinner. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Okay, actually," I said. She apologized, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo the damage. And honestly, I don't need her apology. I've moved on. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you. It takes strength to acknowledge pain without letting it define you." "I learned from the best," I said, squeezing back. A few weeks later, I got a text from Emma. "Hey Alex, Mom said she saw you. Can we talk?" I thought about it for a long time before responding. "What do you want to talk about?" "I want to apologize. And I want to know if we can be siblings again." We agreed to meet for coffee the next time she was in LA for a school break. When we met up, she looked different. Thinner, more tired, less like the golden child and more like a stressed college student. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "For everything. For not standing up for you. For being bratty and entitled. For letting them treat you like you were disposable." "Why didn't you say anything back then?" I asked. "Because I was scared," she admitted. "I was scared that if I defended you, they'd stop loving me too." "I was a coward? You were a kid?" I said. We were both kids in a messed up situation. We talked for hours. She told me about struggling at Princeton, about the pressure to be perfect, about how she'd realized that the Andersons' conditional love didn't stop at me. She was just meeting the conditions so far. They keep comparing me to other students, she said, asking why I'm not at the top of my class, why I haven't joined more prestigious clubs. It's never enough. That's how they are, I said. Love isn't a currency you earn with achievements. But they never learned that. How did you turn out so well-adjusted? She asked. I laughed. I'm in therapy twice a week. I wouldn't call that well-adjusted, but I have Sophia, and she's teaching me what healthy love looks like. I'm jealous, Emma said quietly. Not of you leaving, but of you having that. A parent who loves you just because you exist. It's not too late for you, I said. You can set boundaries with them. You can build your own life. 2 years after moving to LA, I graduated from community college with honors. Sophia was in the front row at my graduation, crying and cheering louder than anyone else. My aunt's family was there too, a whole cheering section of people who loved me. I got accepted to UCLA to finish my bachelor's degree in creative writing. Sophia threw me a party, and her apartment was packed with people, colleagues, friends, extended family, all there to celebrate. Emma came too. She'd transferred from Princeton to a state school closer to home, much to the Andersons' disappointment. But she looked happier, healthier, more herself. I'm proud of you, she told me. You've built a really good life here. You can too, I said. You don't have to live up to their expectations. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from David Anderson. Dear Alex. It read, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. Margaret and I have been doing a lot of reflection, and we've come to understand how profoundly we failed you. We let our own issues and biases hurt an innocent child. There's no excuse for that. I don't expect a response or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that our failure was ours alone. You were always worthy of love. We just weren't capable of giving it properly. I showed the letter to Dr. Rivera in therapy. How does it make you feel? She asked. Validated, I said. For so long, I wondered if I was wrong to be hurt, if I was being too sensitive. But this confirms what I already knew. It wasn't my fault. I didn't fail them. They failed me, and now, Dr. Rivera asked, now I keep living my life, I said, with people who actually love me. In my junior year at UCLA, I took a creative writing class that changed everything. The professor, Dr. Chen, encouraged us to write about our most painful experiences. I wrote about being told I wasn't real family, about the manila folder and the dinner table conversation, about finding Sophia and learning what real love looks like. Dr. Chen submitted my piece to a literary magazine without telling me. It got published and went viral. Suddenly, I was getting messages from other adoptees who'd experienced similar rejections, from adoptive